Land back, y'all.
What's up, guys? Good morning, Hammers. How are we doing today?
We are so excited to be hosting our Patrice Lumumba book trap. I am Chief Amina.
I am Comrade Cathunsin, representing Ashanti, the Ashanti Kingdom. Pronouns he, him. Oh, what's up, Chief Sagoon? And
I dream.
OM,
Land back.
Chief Ina's in here, Comrade Christina, Chief I. Um, I'm sorry, OMFGNO, it's Dream. Do you mind if I just call you It's Dream? Either way, good morning. How you doing? Thanks for coming through. Comrade Lay in the
Out,
building.
out. Yes, Lay, thank you for sharing, y'all. Share up, okay?
Yeah, make sure you
Definitely
share
share
this
into all
video.
your groups.
This is a very dope book trap today. We're taking it to the motherland.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so we're going to be doing Patrice Lumumba, all right? This is the first book trap that we're doing that's actually on the continent, okay? For Africans, like on the continent. And we're so excited. Y'all already know what it is. Before we, even like hop up in here, we want to get y'all like started getting those Hammer City donations coming in, y'all. But look, let me ask you this. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about this, book, like, because when you read it, or like when you see it, you'll see that there isn't like a clear author, right? And even though there isn't a clear author, I bet y'all cannot guess which revolutionary published like Panaf books, okay? I bet y'all don't know what revolutionary published this. If you get it wrong, you got to donate $5 to Hammer City. Go ahead,
Oh
put in
no,
the
no.
comments.
Better yet, if you could get this right, I got $10 on Hammer City. $10
Okay,
flat.
okay.
So if you want this $10 on Hammer City, you gotta get it right.
Yes, all right. So, all right, I see CIC in the building. Thank y'all for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Let's go ahead and get those donations coming in for Hammer City. We are building a city for our people, for colonized people, y'all, okay? No
Yes.
Rona, no cops, no rent.
Right. Which revolutionary published Pan F books? Which African revolutionary? This tests your knowledge. All right.
You see any comments coming in?
I see the comments coming in. I'm waiting to get a few answers in. I see a few answers, a few good answers. Okay, Nkrumah,
Okay.
Gaddafi. All right, shout out to Ben Hameen for $10 at Hammer City. I appreciate you, comrade. Anybody can match Ben Hameen? Anybody?
Let's see. Cathunsin, let me tell you, you about to match because Chief Shagun got it. It's
I know, I know,
Nkrumah.
I know. It was Nkrumah. I was waiting for other answers, but I saw it and I was like, first try.
All right, Taliba pledge 5.
Chief
Awesome. Thank you
Sagoon's
so
messed
much,
up.
Bree.
We got $5. Thank you, Comrade Taliba.
Perfect. Chief
10
Shagun
from
got
Chief
10 too.
Sagoon. Appreciate you, comrade. Thank you for all the shares too.
Perfect. All right, get us sold. Got 5 on it. Got 5 on it. Land
Get five
back.
on it. Thank you.
So
So
look, let me tell y'all.
you're the preface, right? For the really the book starts off with the hitting the ground running with an awesome preface, a letter straight from Lumumba to his wife. So
Absolutely. So Lumumba says in this letter to his wife, right before they murdered him, y'all, he says, "We are not alone. Africa, Asia, and the free liberated people from all corners of the world will always be found at the side of the millions of Congolese who will not abandon the struggle until the day when there is no longer any colonialist and their mercenaries in our country. As to my children who I leave and whom I may never see again, I should like them to be told that it is for them, as it is for every Congolese, to accomplish the sacred task of reconstructing our independence and our sovereignty. For without dignity, there is no liberty. Without justice, there is no dignity. And without independence, there is no free man. Neither brutality, nor cruelty, nor torture will ever bring me to ask for mercy, for I prefer to die with my head unbowed, my faith unshakable, and with profound trust in the destiny of my country, rather than live under subjection and disregarding sacred principles. History will one day have its say, but it will not be the history that is taught in Brussels, Paris, Washington, or in the United Nations, but the history which will be taught in the countries freed from imperialism and its puppets. Africa will write her own history, and to the north and south of the Sahara, it will be a glorious and dignified history. Do not weep for me, my dear wife. I know that my country, which is suffering so much, will know how to defend its independence and its liberty. Long live the Congo, long live Africa. Y'all, all of this, land back all the way, all right? Nkrumah knew that they were coming at his neck. Nkrumah. Lumumba knew that they were coming at his neck. I know I'm still and he was prepared, right? He was prepared to die, like with all faith in the Congolese people to become free. And that's what we need to do, y'all. That's why we get these donations for Hammer City, all right? We know that colonialism go come at our necks for trying to get Hammer City, okay? They're coming at our necks, y'all. But that's all right, because guess what? We going for freedom, full and complete freedom, y'all.
Awesome. Also, Comrade Bella, the answer was Nkrumah, and Chief Sagun get it right. And appreciate everyone for the shares and donating to Hammer City, building this dual power. And think about the prefaces. You could tell Lumumba also really united with principle unity number one. It's not just about getting the land back, but he mentions that the history being taught won't be from Belgium and things like that. Getting the land back also includes having control over the education of the land too. Any education that's not controlled by masses is inherently is used to oppress. Point blank. Period. So, are we going to the next segment?
Yeah, definitely. Thank y'all. Shout out for those donations. Let's keep them coming. So, all right, let's see. We go get started on that. First, read that back, y'all. Now, before we even hop in, one thing that we want to make sure that we acknowledge, we talk about, like, in our political education, being clear of our political line, right? And so, like, as we were reading, there were a few things, that definitely need to be, like, called out that sort of, like, don't sit with our political line. First, this biography, it's a great biography, but it's filled with like petty bourgeoisie language, right? And it centers this like Marxist sort of view, okay? And then the next thing, the understanding that, it sits is like basically with capitalism at the center of all problems for colonized people. Now, in Black Hammer, we know that the root of our problem is not capitalism, right? The root of our problem is colonialism, and capitalism is a symptom of that, right? And so we want to make sure that we uphold, our principles of unity and calling that out. Unity number 3, right? The root of our problem is capitalism and those neo-colonial sellouts that they pull out with them. All right, Lembach, let's go ahead and get into this reading. It says, Lumumba in the early phase was like any other Congolese leader, infected with the disease of slave mentality and looked to the Belgians for leadership and guidance. But at a certain stage of development, coinciding with the increased growth of political consciousness of his people, he broke through. He cut the umbilical cord that bound him ideologically with his masters and oppressors. And as he became more and more enmeshed with the people, his confidence in their strength grew, as did his conviction that they and they alone would constitute the force that would liberate the Congo. He arrived at the conclusion from hard and bitter experience that only armed struggle of the people would dislodge the Belgians in Katanga. He had already reached this conclusion even before his election as prime minister. This brought him into direct collision with imperialists and their puppets. They marked him down and worked tirelessly and without fatigue, y'all, that bourgeoisie language to say tirelessly to bring about his destruction. Only after they had engineered a murder so foul, so brutal as to revolt the conscience of mankind, did they allow themselves to rest. They wouldn't even rest until the man was dead, right? Because he went against, that imperialism. Now, one of the reasons why I chose this, like, read that back, is because I really wanted to highlight how, like, even the revolutionaries that we study now have sort of had to, meet the political line, right? We've all had to, like, make our way to the point of being for the people, right? Even Lumumba, who we're studying right now for his techniques, right? We know that, like, the Belgians intentionally created these class divisions because they wanted full influence. And Lumumba, like many of us, fell for it, right? We fell for these colonial tricks. One thing that we're going to see come up, like, they use this term évolue. It sounds like neocolonial, right? Évolue. It's a French word, and it's basically for, like, Africans, and Asians who have given in to, like, European values, And so, like, let this be a reminder of our second principle, y'all, that, like, we have these neocolonial sellouts, right? Like, here's our third, like, we have those neocolonial sellouts, but at the same time, like, we are all equal, right? And we ensure that, we are pushing for, like, the freedom of colonized people. So, like, even when those sellouts come, once they start working for the people, you can sit with us, they say on Mean Girls, you can't sit here. So they can sit with us then.
Awesome, awesome. That's awesome feedback. I just like to give a shout out to Comrade Taliba for sharing to 35 groups. That's awesome. Keep sharing the stream. But I unite with everything that you said. And the thing is, Lumumba wasn't a guy who was really super into theory. He wasn't. In fact, this book's purpose is to relate a lot of Lumumba's beliefs and tying it back to Marxism and Marx. But Lumumba was just a regular guy who just wanted more for his people, simply that. And to that, it just threatened the state so much and the legal colonial puppets. So that's why, um, you know, the book has this language where it's like, all right, the bourgeois, the poor people, and then there's like the socialist revolutionaries and things like that. When the social revolutionaries and the people should be one and the same. So that's kind of the contradiction with this book, where it's using that language to somehow separate the socialist revolutionaries and the proletariat, when it's literally should be the same thing, and there's should be no difference. Even though Lumumba essentially committed class suicide, which you should all encourage your petty bourgeois friends to, build unity with the proletariat, because outside of that, you just a sellout. Outside of that, so awesome passage, well done.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Thank you. I unite with that. Let's see where we at with those with our comments and our donations. Y'all keep those donations coming in. And next, we're going to be asking y'all for our audience read that back. So be ready to share your read that backs. Okay, Chief I.
Right. Oh, 45. Awesome. I think it's also important to recognize that you don't need some fancy degree to know what's going on. Even though Lumumba was very educated, a lot of his political line and things like that didn't come from, Marx or anything like that. It just came from literally just talking to his people. That's why I think the Phantom quote about like it's not tweeting and like I'm paraphrasing like a lot, but it's not paraphrase. I mean, it's not like sharing tweets and like things like that. It's literally going outside and doing communist stuff. Literally go outside and do communist. Go outside doing communist stuff with your homies. That's what it's all about. And talking to the colonized masses. We're a little ahead of schedule, but I don't have anything else to say. If you want to
Yeah.
go,
So Taliba has a great comment right here. Are we able to hold it there? Let's see. Okay. Okay, so she's hopping into the audience. Read that back. My read that back highlights the importance of political education. Few of the leaders really understood the historic process involved on the crucial question of what society would emerge after independence. Yes, I love that. And Cathunsin, that was like one of the things that you were really calling out, right? How they didn't, they didn't even like focus on like what the society was going to look like after. Their first, like their straight view was like independence and freedom.
right, and that's why Black Hammer has that political line. Like, we're gonna build Hammer City. We're gonna make sure we build this dual power. And it's like you could get into the nuance of why they did that because they want to build unity for the independent front. But if the independence, if you just pushing for boneless independence just to make sure you don't upset other people, then is it even worth it? But Lumumba was probably one of the few people who actually was like, yeah, I want independence, but I really want independence. I don't want boneless independence. I don't want Fox independence. You know, I don't want Beyond Meat independence. Like, I want independence. So that's an awesome thing about Lumumba. That's an awesome quote, Comrade Taliba.
Yes, and there was a comment, sorry, it went away so quick. That said, like Hammer City, like we have a vision for the revolution, right? And that's Hammer City. There we go. Shout out, shout out. Yeah, and so like Hammer City is part of that vision for us. Let's see, it looks like we are at $50 for our Hammer City donations. Speaking of that vision, so keep those donations coming in, y'all. Get these shared. Make sure that your friends, your family, your colonizer friends, them colonizers you shacking up with, putting in those donations, sending them reparations. Okay. Let's see. Do we have some more for audience? Read that back.
Right. Any quotes from you? It's a really awesome book. So I'm glad I was leadership believed in me and Amina to read this book out to you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Sykes. All right, yeah. So, definitely one thing, like one contradiction that we kept seeing, coming up like in this set of readings was definitely the separation, between like the classes, right? And like, really like honing in on that, principle of unity number 3, where we have, these like colonial sellouts, and like, they call it, because Belgium, is French, right? They use the word, évolue, and that basically means evolved, right? So, Africans, or like indigenous or Asian people who are evolved. And we know, what we do know is that like those who are so-called evolved are not going to be our saviors, right? They can find that political line for sure. And that's one thing that Patrice Lumumba did, right? Patrice Lumumba found that line, once he realized that our freedom was not going to come from the colonial state itself. Like Belgium was not going to give the Congo its freedom. And we actually, saw that as part of the reading. If you guys were able, to catch that, where there was, the question Belgium asked, like, okay, what should we do, right? Should we remove ourselves, or like, should we, completely step back? or should we remain there, right? And they had to ask themselves that question because they were trying to figure out, if we remove ourselves, how can we maintain some kind of stronghold in the Congo? And they attempted to do that. And I mean, we end up seeing, and like we're going to see more toward the end of this book trap, of how that was not the ending result. They can decide, okay, well, we want to maintain like a footlock in the Congo, but what do the people want, right? And ultimately, that's what's going to happen. You were
Yeah,
about to say something, Comrade?
yeah, and even even some material conditions that affect the capitalist class influence their decisions too. So, and we're going to see a little bit later. There was a key event that happened that um, I guess threatened the control that the bourgeoisie colonizers in Europe had control over their own countries, that led them to explicitly, there's like you could follow the money, you could follow the legislation that explicitly caused them to build this bourgeois class that was so effective in uh, reading of Patrice Lumumba. And also reading this, um, you know, you know, there's a I think there's a quote I heard. Any um, I guess achievement. I think Kwame Ture was saying that, like, any achievement that you know any individual achievement that Africans should be given up to the ancestors, because is these people sacrifice and us learning from the mistakes, you know, that we're able to build up to this point. In fact, we're reading his life right now and using it to, um, uh, strengthen our cadre, strengthen our political line. So it's awesome, awesome stuff. Kind of a
Yeah.
ahead of schedule.
Chief I says, yes, it's about having a complete say about what happens on our land, dictatorship over our lands, lives, and resources. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, because I mean, the nurturers of the land, right? There's this concept of, when we look at like pre-colonial Africa, of first comers to the land, right? And really this concept of first comers has truly had to arise because of colonialism, because we know that the claim that our ancestors placed on the land, and this is actually something that I think Cathunsin is going to bring up. We know that like when our ancestors placed claim, like to land, or was like building on land, even if their home was on the land, that home was part of the community, right? It was community building. It was like bringing in the community, feeding the community, housing the community.
Right. Oh, and Chief, we're going to the next segment, but I will save Chief Segun's quote because that's really important, and probably use it for the next audience read that back. So also while we're talking, you guys could just post your readings, audience read that backs, and we'll get to it in the next segment. But right now, there's a read that back. Yeah. So hold on, let me see if I could do this. Okay, so while the Congolese were all united on the question of private ownership of land, just how it should be acquired brought about differences, for the different classes had different approaches. Concretely, this boiled down to the question whether it should be purchased from the state or not. Lumumba had graduated to become a Ebule, but he was one of the few who kept his fingers on the pulse of the people. And I love that so much, the pulse of the people as a whole. He went to the workers and peasants to find out what they felt and thought about of the matter. He wrote, "I have carried out a wide-ranging inquiry amongst the different strata of the population on the purchase of land. After questioning native chiefs, various members of the working class, and intelligentsia, I have roughly summarized their views as follows. The Congo is our common patrimony. The Europeans came to civilize us and not to usurp their natural rights, have also belonged to, and the natural and inalienable rights bequeathed to us by our ancestors. These rights have always belonged to us collectively. If it is the case of replacing the system of communally held property by the system of individual ownership, it is obviously fair to share proportionally the patrimony which belongs to us collectively, in such a way that each member of the community receives his share. This share belongs to the right to which each inhabitant should be registered in the name of each family. There can be no question of sale. Our forebears never bought land to cultivate their fields and build their houses. We are poor and we have not necessarily have not have this necessary money to buy this land. The whites have taken hold of our rights, our lands, and now wish to sell them to us for money, as if we are strangers in this country. They have uh, become owners of our land, and we, the natives, have become mere immigrants because our land is now to be sold to us. There are no objection if the state sells the land to native traders because they have the means to buy it and they will get their money back in due course. But to sell the land to poor natives is unjust. And this is definitely just it unites with principle unity number one because we the colonized masses of Congo and the world should have dictatorship over the lands of labor, but it also points out just how egregious this is. Well, there's 2 points I made. Not only how egregious this is, as in you come, you force these people off their land, um, you make sure that their self-preservation is mangled, and then when it's time for you to leave, because after World War II, after the white proletariat, whipping class in uh, Europe was wilding, and it was just too much money for them to like keep oppressing Congo. They left, and then they wanted to make deals to have them buy their land back. And it's like, how can you do all that? Make sure no one could even have some sort of self-preservation, and then it's like, here, um, you could pay us for it back after we took it by force and stuff like that. And also another point is this is Patrice Lumumba knows his history, as in everything used to be community owned, which brings up to the point. Kwame Ture said this, CIC said this was, you know, Marx did not invent communism. It's been around. We've been kicking cool stuff. Like um, he simply recruited. So is it really a piece here? Powerful excerpt. You need number one.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's so important that that land question was brought up, right? Like Lumumba really understood the importance of the land, and knowing that the people, understood like why that land belongs to them. There is like one part that really stood out to me, right? It's like there can be no question of sale. Our forebears never bought land to cultivate their fields and build their houses. Like that wasn't a thing prior to colonialism, prior to like Belgians trying to come in and stealing the land from the people who were there first. And I completely agree with you, Comrade. The audacity, right? The caudacity to go into someone else's like land space, and then tell them to buy it back from you. And that's, I mean, that's colonialism within itself.
Right. And also, I think one thing as interesting is so there's a song called Another Story by Burna Boy. Of course, I won't play it here because like copyright and stuff like that. But at the beginning of the song, there's like an excerpt of how some British company, right? Some British monopolist, capitalist uh, um, company, right? Bought Nigeria, right? So literally, like, just imagine you, a company buying a bunch of Africans, right? Like that's neocolonialism. It's like still modern day slavery, and you know, having dictation over the lands, labor, and resources. And one thing that's important in that whole quote is the British company, right, still exists today, right? A lot of the companies that were set up in these colonial countries, right, to um, monopolize their resources and people and land still exist, and they just kind of rebranded themselves, and they might put a little, a few Africans as a CEO every once in a while, but either way, the point of these things is to siphon the resources that are meant for the people in these countries. So it's kind of like, that's how um, this political line is just really important because it lets you um, do things like follow the money and see how they try to rebrand themselves, and we're not going to let them because we see them. Unilever is still in Nigeria operating. You know, Total Petroleum is still in Ghana operating. These companies are still here. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. We have some great comments that we're rolling through, and I really want to, call those out. So, like Chief Ali said, I love this. Marx was a colonizer, not a communist. He took that from Africa and from indigenous nations. Absolutely. Do not be confused. Marx was a colonizer. And oh man, Cathunsin, I'm not even. I don't. Did you touch on? Yeah, I hope I'm not hopping ahead of myself. Where you mentioned, when we were like chatting about, the separation of, like the white whipping class uh, and colonized people, right? Like the two are not the same. And like
right.
that's one contradiction that this book really kept trying to hit on. They were really trying to equate colonized people with the white whipping class, and the struggle is not the same, right? We see that through our political education with Kwame Ture. We see that through our own lives. The struggle that we have for freedom is not the struggle that the white whipping class has to, try to become equal, to try to become part of the bourgeoisie, right? There was a comment from Chief Lay. Are we able to bring that one back? Yeah, so Chief Lay says it is so important to give the masses the ability to become human again. We will take the power eventually. Um, right, exactly. Like the power belongs to us, right? Um, I mean, that is, that centers
Us and only us.
mhm, exactly. Take a look that, first principle of unity, right? And then even that fourth principle of unity, it is the colonized proletariat that the power belongs to.
Right. I'm gonna touch on one thing before we go into the readbacks is um so when after feudalism and when peasants were forced off their land and forced into urbanization, when European peasants were kicked off, displaced from their lands and went into these cities for work, they always found work. While African peasants who were forced off their land went into the cities and did not find work and could barely survive. That's the difference between the white working class and the African working class. And this goes into uh, Chief Segun's segment. I mean, comment. So we're going to the audience read that back and also get into post your favorite quotes. But yeah, exactly. Thanks. After World War II, this disposition of the peasantry was accelerated, and white settlers came to the Congo in hundreds. They were given farms up to 500 hectares. The demands of the companies and white settlers for more land grew in intensity and were insatiable. Not just the white ruling class, but the whipping class as well. Like I said, the white whipping class is propped up by the oppression of indigenous people and Africans. So that's why the true proletariat is the colonized proletariat in that sense.
Yeah, land back. Y'all, I really want to like do a quick reminder, for y'all to like share this. If you haven't shared, if you hopped up in here late, go ahead, share this. Tag your family, let's do some agitation, right? And then let's get these donations coming in for Hammer City. Let's get to our political line. Let's get to our freedom. All right. Yes. And let me, just in case, you can donate gofundme.com/build hammer city. And then Cash App, Venmo, build hammer city.
Right. And before I read the next quote, just bouncing off of Chisagun's quote, is also that that's why it's very important to build this global unit, this Pan Africanism, because we understand that, you know, America, Europeans are being propped up by Africa and the global South. So if we take that away from them, um, what else do they have? You know, the you have to think of a holistic approach of weakening the empire, and because they are being propped up by these neo-colonial puppets in the global South and Africa, it's imperative that we take that away from them. We take that back. Um, so read that back by Chief Lay. Europeans don't fight for our liberation; they fight wars to consolidate colonialism. That's very important. The Western European powers, who in 1884 at the Berlin Conference had cynically agreed amongst themselves to carve up the entire continent Africa, had emerged from the Second Imperialist War of 1939 to 1945, weak and exhausted. Yeah. Um, as early as the beginning of this century, far-sighted thinkers characterized this period as an epoch of colonial uprising, proletarian revolution powers who in 1884 at the Berlin Conference had cynically agreed amongst themselves to carve up the entire continent of Africa, had emerged from the Second Imperialist War, weak and exhausted as the beginning of the earlier century. Like we said, like um, you know, Africa was a business deal to them. Some of these companies are still in Africa, exploiting Africa under rebranding, and they have neo-colonial puppets running them. Um, and I think another thing is, I just completely lost it. Like a lot of the wars you see always have some company attached to it, like Biafra, right? Biafra, the Civil War in Nigeria. British Petroleum BP, the responsible for the oil spill and the destruction of the environment, they were the architects of the Nigerian Civil War. And you know, and for them it was they just supported whoever would win between who's it? It was the Nigerian government and I think wait, what was the other one? Where's the other insurgent? Well, the other ones usually I'm pretty sure the Igbo people in the South, they were just like whoever wins that, we're gonna support them. But it was mostly a struggle over oil and people and people who threaten that. So what time is it?
Yeah,
Oh
and I
man,
definitely I want to, quickly like expound on that separation, right? The creation of those separations. That's why when we're calling out our nations, that's why, when we say like, representing, the colonized nation of Africa, right? Because we know that those separations, were really like pushed forward by colonialism. There's no reason why, there should have been the Biafran War, right? There's no reason why, Sudanese, like, people should be fighting each other cross border. There's no reason why there should be the separation of, the Koreas or, even, Vietnam, right? All of those things were created by colonialism and colonialism's thirst for our land, labor, and resources.
yeah, awesome.
Let's see, Chief Shagun said,
All right.
you want to read that one?
Yeah. Can y'all talk about how the African bourgeoisie is not the real bourgeoisie and doesn't actually own the means of production? I think there was a line that said the only way the class can have impact and change society is to commit class suicide and throw their lot in with the workers and peasants. That's exactly right. In fact, even the bourgeoisie was allowed to have any type of capital. In fact, before independence was even a thing, like it was strategic. It's kind of like they think it's real freedom, but they were granted that opportunity, so they're not the real bourgeoisie. There was a quote where they, um, because Belgium owned all the means of production and monopolized the country, um, the only other alternative to private ownership that the Congolese people had was through cattle and livestock. And even they led campaigns to even take that away from them. So it was, at some point, it was complete control. Nobody could eat. And when they decided to withdraw from Africa because it was too expensive, they granted a few bourgeoisie people who saw it as freedom, compared to where they came from, and they used that to disunite with the working class proletariat and the sellouts in that case.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really, so I want to carry that into our next, like, read that back, right? Because I feel like it's going to fit, right into that. And while we do this read that back, y'all, we have our goal of like getting 100 donations for $100 in donations for Hammer City. We are only halfway there. So we still need 50 more dollars, to meet our goal. So please, go ahead and, get those donations in, get some reparations coming in. And we are going to do the third read that back. And I know by the end of this, we are going to meet our goal. Okay, so the next read that back says, the urbanization figures deal with only those who were legally allowed to be present in the cities. It does not mention the thousands of unemployed in the cities, particularly in cities like Leopoldville. But in January 1959, Leopoldville had at least 1 million people, in the opinion of many observers. Many of them were young and had migrated to search for work and for better opportunities. In the towns, they came into contact with political ideas. They took to Lumumba and those like him because they expressed their own desires. I want y'all to listen to this, okay? Internalize this, grab this, and tell your mama this, okay? It was the workers and the unemployed who rose in revolt against the Belgian rulers on the 4th and 5th of February 1959. 7 days after Lumumba's mammoth rally, if there was one single incident that shook the nerves of the Belgian rulers and made them panic, it was just this. They were never the same again. They began to give in one after another to the demands of the Congolese people. Before the outbreak, observers noticed that there was a hostile mood on part of the Congolese toward the Belgians. The latter were being jeered at and insulted as they passed in their cars. At the same time, the people organized spontaneous little meetings and began marching down the main streets and the avenues. Listen, when we talk about, just like Chief Shagun said, right, there is no real, like, African bourgeoisie, right? This reeks all over of our fourth principle of unity, y'all. It is the colonized proletariat that is the only true proletariat, right? It is through the power of these Congolese people taken to the streets, these Congolese people jeering at the Belgians, shaking them up, right? I love it says, they were shook. It was because of this that, this revolution was able to pull through. And I really, that, like, I'm going to reread that sentence for y'all, okay? Because it was the workers and the unemployed who rose in revolt against the Belgian rulers, okay? Because I really want us to internalize that.
Because who else? Who else is gonna do it?
Exactly. Who else is going to do it? And I really want this to be a reminder. We talk about, as we talk about like part of our, like part of the problem within like neo-colonial sellers, right? Like there not being this real, like class of African bourgeoisie. We have to remind ourselves here that it is not, it's not the Barack Obamas who's going to save us, right? And African people love them some Barack Obama, okay? It's not, the whipping master Bernie Sanders who's gonna save us. It is not the Kamalas, it's not the Bidens who's gonna save us. It's not like all of these, so-called bourgeoisie who are going to save us, right? It is, as our principle of unity says, it is the colonized proletariat, all right, that is going to like, return the land, that is going to, take back the power, that's going to create the fall of this shaken, colonial state. And, just like they did in the Congo, the Belgians were, they were shook, right? They were in their feelings. Um, I love the part here where it says, okay, it made them panic. They were never the same again. And that they were like, they were being like jeered at, as they passed by in their cars. And if you have ever seen, an African give you the side eye, okay, colonized people really can throw some looks, right? So I can only imagine what that jeering looked like. Chief Shagun said, okay, we will save us. Our mass unity as colonized people will overturn this beast. Absolutely.
What's that? Bars. Straight facts. But it's like also if you think about just talking about the pages, I was just kind of laughing about just how much like just like how little it takes for them to disunite with the working class. Just like crumbs, like you know, and engage in reactionary politics. It's like, oh, we got $200 extra on our student, paying for college. Like that's enough for them to, be on Obama's nuts for the rest of, you know, and terrorize people. It's just like I just think about it all the time. But it's like, and I'm pretty sure like Lumumba had that problem, just people who, you know, especially since he came from the evoluted class, it's just like just the magnitude of him being like, you know what, I kind of, I kind of want poor people to have food on their tables, and just everyone looking at him like, man, you wilding, bro. What? Like they found that as like a like this betrayal. So it's just kind of like they're gross, man. They're super gross. I don't like them.
Yeah, for sure. Um, let's see. Let's get some more comments coming in. I feel like I missed a few as we were rolling through.
It's 9, 11.
Yeah, class suicide is a real thing, right? And I feel like that one of the keys, to like Lumumba's revolutionary self was understanding that he had to create, class suicide. And sometimes that get us murdered, y'all. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. Um, It's about 10:50, so I guess we have final like time to read comments and final read that backs. Comrade Ben Hameen, thank you for the wait. Well, Comrade Ben Hameen is asking who's going to pledge $5 or $10. Who's going to do it? You know what, Comrade Ben Hameen, I will match you on 5. I'll match you on the 5 right now. So that's like $15 for me. All right, $15 total. Awesome. Anybody else?
yeah, let's have them come in, y'all. We need, let's see, we need what, 45 more to reach our goal.
Right, Comrade Benjamin. They were shook that day. They're like I said, don't poke the The immediate ancestor of Ebule was a soldier, priest. The Catholic Church dominated the social and cultural life of the Congolese, just as a peasant could not escape the administrator and recruiting agent. He could not dodge the missionary. That I was thinking about that earlier, but that's also powerful. And thank you, Chief Ali, for the $10 match. Comrade Dante, thank you for the $10. Awesome. Chief Sub with the $5. Comrade Neoda with the $10. Thank you so much. Um, sorry, ADHD. I lost my thought. What were we talking about?
Yeah. I know, I know. Chief said, can you roll back that comment for us? Shout out to our producers, y'all.
Chief Sub.
Um, yes. All right, let's see. Okay, the immediate ancestors of the Evolu was the, I can't help but to say it like that, was the soldier and the priest. The Catholic Church dominated the entire social and cultural life of the Congolese. Just as the peasant could not escape the administrator and recruiting agent, he could not dodge the missionary. Yo, this is so real, right? We talk about, you know, the use and the impact of like religion within, you know, colonialism, right? How it was used, you know, as a factor to maintain control and things like that. And yeah, absolutely, could not dodge the missionary. Taliba has pledged another 5. Kwizani pledged 10. Perfect.
Chief
All right, Chief Uncle. Okay, SG coming through.
SG. Um,
Yes. But yeah, absolutely. Did you want to come in on that, Cathunsin?
yeah, and it was like these were one of the few ways anybody could gain status in the times too. So either before the bourgeoisie was allowed to have private uh, ownership of anything, it was you either a soldier for the Belgian people or um, a priest, a missionary, or things like that. So
Absolutely.
it's also important to just kind of contextualize everything of like the time, because these Catholicisms have a playbook too, and I think it's important to kind of understand that, because how can you defeat your enemy without understanding how it works? So
Right. Lambeck Anastasia, thank you for that 5.
there was some read that backs earlier that we missed, so I think we have a lot of time. Okay, yeah. Can you read that? I need some water.
Yeah, I got you. I got you. Chief Ali says on the evolved middle class intellectuals, land hunger, national oppression, the result of imperialist domination, had pushed people forward. At a certain stage, the people created the national movement. Originally, it came from the intellectuals who managed to squeeze some degree of education. Like Lumumba, petty bourgeoisie must commit class suicide and side with the masses. Yes, absolutely. Um, and we always picture, and this is one of the reasons why we wanted to call out the contradictions that came within this first segment, right? Because we know that, it doesn't matter, how much education you have, how much money you have. We know where that power is going to stem from. And sort of like, Lumumba's ability to, sort of like branch into this, intellectualism, came from like that access, that was granted through siding with colonialism, right? But then, of course, the moment he disunited with colonialism and with imperialism, they were ready to, to take him out. Taliba says, even today, we're still forced against our will to participate in activities that further colonialism. Oh my gosh, absolutely, every single day. One thing that I always hear people, whenever they hear, that someone is like anti-capitalist or, they're like, oh, How can you be anti-capitalist and you have a job? How can you be anti-capitalist and you're buying food? Why don't you go to the farm? Why don't you raise? And it's like, when we look at the reality that colonialism, this structure in this country particularly, has set up for us, where is the opportunity to not, right? And that's what we're trying to do with Hammer City, y'all, because there's a way out, and it's gonna be from that dual contending power, right? It's
Right.
gonna be from creating, that space for colonized people, so that we can remove ourselves from like the stronghold that colonialism has on us.
Right. And I think definitely a contradiction with this book is kind of like the framing. Like I said earlier, the bourgeoisie, um, the working class people, and then the social revolutionaries who committed class suicide. Like somehow the revolution is contingent on the petty bourgeoisie committing class suicide. Where no, it's like we said, like somebody posted a quote of the working class people. Being like, no, forget this, and then rising up and doing it. And maybe it wasn't organized, but you don't have to be a petty bourgeoisie person who commits class suicide to understand organization and become leadership. So I think the framing, how the book frames that is like, okay, well, you had to have been educated by the colonial system, and then realize, oh well, I like poor people in order for the revolution to pop off. When it was, it kind of erases just just exactly everything that the poor people were doing up to that position. In fact, you would have nothing to talk about unless it was for the poor people. So when you're like, that's how I feel about academic leftists. Is like, and things like that. You would literally have nothing to talk about unless it was these poor colonized people making stuff shake. And that's where the praxis comes in. Whereas, like, you go outside and do communist stuff will give you that understanding. And you understand that, people been about this life. You just don't read about it in books. People have been doing what you've been reading about books forever. So it's kind of like, that's why, Walter Rodney always said, do not trust academic leftists or people who are into just um, academic. Yeah, what Chief uh, uh, So said, um, the fourth unity principle from Black Hammer. So
Absolutely. So y'all, land back and shout out to y'all for like hopping in into the book trap today in our first segment of Patrice Lumumba. We were
what's
able
this?
to. What'd you say?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, keep going. I apologize. I
We
thought
were
you were
able.
ending.
Oh, we were able to get $125 in donations.
Awesome.
To go toward Hammer City. Yes, great work, y'all. Great work. um, if there is, anything that I want y'all to be able to take from, this segment today, is understanding that one, there is no such thing as the African bourgeoisie.
Word.
Two, there is no common or equal struggle amongst, colonized people and the white whipping class. They are just that.
Facts.
Marx is a colonizer. Um, and
Sir.
then and then let's stand with our political line, right? So we go into those announcements right after I hit up this last principle of unity to like close out today. We believe that the colonized proletariat is the only true proletariat. Only through our leadership can white power, capitalism, colonialism, imperialism, and all its symptomatic offspring be smashed. Let's smash this, y'all. Let's smash it. Land back. Go ahead, hit us with those announcements.
All right. So
Perfect.
we still have the colonizer class for colonizers in your life. I got one uh, colonizer in my life who's pretty
You
dope.
shacking up? Let me find out you shack. I'm
Oh,
gonna tell the
absolutely. I
ancestors.
mean, no disrespect, but absolutely
I'm playing.
not. But
I'm playing. I'm playing.
no disrespect, but yeah, try to get them into this class is just Black Hammer's political line. Um, So it's important. And then also November 28th, um, Forging the Hammer, a monthly political study. Um, Starts at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. I
Yeah,
forget what
Landback,
MST.
quick correction. Today, November 29th. So we have our monthly political education. Remember, it's mandatory for all hammers, okay? Um, Forging the Hammer, all right? Let's hop up in there and get that political education. Our commander in chief gonna be delivering some life to us today. And then remember, so a quick thing, just in case you have a question, the colonizer class is $25 per class session. All right. Let them, that's like a minimum, right? Put in those reparations. Um, we out here, tell your colonizer friends to come and like unlearn and relearn. All right. And listen to some colonized people.
Right. Next week we'll be reading chapters 5 through 8 um, of the book trap. Uh, so should be also next week too. I really enjoyed today. We were kind of nervous at the beginning, right? But being surrounded by our comrades, we just kind of like pumped the PE out, and then they helped us get through it too. So appreciate y'all.
Yeah, definitely. Make sure if you all need the PDF so that you can read, 5 through 8 next week and, be caught up for our book trap segment, do go ahead and like reach out, okay? Um, and then make sure, y'all, let's get some more, Black Hammers up in here. Join Black Hammer. If you have not joined Black Hammer yet and you are just an onlooker and you are a colonized person, join Black Hammer. All right, blackhammer.org/slash join.
Yep.
All right, let's see. Do we have any last comments that we need to check out before
Right.
we
Yeah.
close this down?
Anything we forgot to touch on, or
All right, perfect. Um, y'all were
yes, yes.
amazing. Yes.
All
Land
right.
back, y'all. We'll see you next week.
See you next week. Awesome.
Same time.